Today's guest is Ryan Groth. Ryan's the CEO and founder of Sales Transformation Group. He's helped roofing companies and other contractors from around the country improve their technology capabilities and transform their sales organization. Ryan, thanks for coming on the show.
Tats, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. My parents are in the industry, and I witnessed what them as a business owner, their life started to change. We went to cool vacations. We had some time. I was like, man, this is great. I didn't see a lot of money growing up until that time in my family, so I was feeling excited about the growth and the potential of being part of that. The recession knocked them out, knocked out their marriage as well. Ooh. So to me, it helped me. It helped me to say, hey, I want to do this differently. I want to do well professionally and start to hopefully build on what I was witnessing. And then hopefully I can do family well too. So those are two major focuses for me. And I don't have a whole lot else I focus on. I have some hobbies, but with 3 kids and a business, you start to drown those out pretty quickly. My hobbies are those things. And yeah, so I took baseball, took a huge crack at it, overcame some, walked on and took care of my own, paid for myself along the way with restaurants and working at restaurants as a waiter and a food runner. And eventually I got a scholarship and then got drafted and then went to Division I school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oral Roberts, played baseball there and then got drafted again, played a few seasons. And it was just cool. I got to experience that, but more importantly, it showed me what would happen if you just gave it your best and didn't have any regrets. And I didn't have any regrets looking back. And so as I wanted to start a family, I needed a way to make money. I was dabbling with some things, and then some mentors came along and got me connected. I ended up meeting a roofer in South Florida who's very entrepreneurial, incredible businessman, like guy's a rock star. And he saw my hunger and he started mentoring me. I didn't work for his roofing company specifically. I worked with him and partnered up on a CRM program. So we started to roll out technology. I'm like, man, I know pipeline measurement and analytics and reports. I'm like, this all makes sense. It's like sports. He's like, exactly. He was a football player. And so it immediately made sense, the importance of a good process, a good system, measuring, and then having the athlete side, the people, have the right focus on team and the right emphasis on culture. And for me, all of that just made so much sense. But to be a part of what my mentor there, he shared and shaped, he was not a mom and pop. I think that's the thing that really got me interested in working with him and learning, was I witnessed somebody who was not a mom and pop. And I had seen that on a couple of occasions, including my parents, right? And I was like, man, this is awesome to see somebody be a professional businessman, entrepreneur who happens to be doing commercial roofing. And then when I learned that level of thinking, I was like the canvas, like I've told him before, I was like the canvas I was ready to be painted on, and he was able to put his fingerprints on me for a little bit. And from there, I just was very resourceful and took all the knowledge I could and grew as much as I could, and with him until it made sense for me to start my own thing. And so I focused primarily on the roofing and all trades industry on building high-performing sales organizations. And that's not just as simple as here's a sales process. There's a lot more variables to that. But that's what I'm doing. And it's a lot of fun because I could see people grow and have the ability, the resources, the system, the things that are proven, and the mindset that's proven to help them overcome all the fears and the unknowns and to build something that they're proud of, whether that's more time with family, whether that's become number one in the world, or whatever the reason is. I love that being really proficient, sales, marketing, service, and having a culture that attracts people that are high performers to support that vision is very fun to watch. And I love seeing all the different companies have their own DNA and kind of come out uniquely. So having my contribution to that is what I'm all about right now, and we'll see where it goes. It's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about sports. I played Division I, but was nowhere close to attempting to play pro. Now tell me, I know a lot of athletes come out and do excel at sales. Why is that the case?
I think there's a couple of reasons. One is they're used to working. They're used to the work. Like they know if I'm going to play well in the game, I got to put the reps in. And so with an athlete comes thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. In sales comes thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. So their muscles mentally are prepared to do whatever it takes. They know. And that's why I like high performers, especially in sports, because they know what it takes. And then secondly, there's the competitive drive. There's the team. Hopefully, I like team sport people. I think individual sport players are great, like golf and tennis, swimming. Those are great sports, but they're not team sports. So they have to rely on others and be leaders and really, create camaraderie. So I think those are very powerful. I also think that here's what I love about sports and sales: you either win or you lose. Not everybody's a winner and they all get a trophy. You didn't make the sale, like the company didn't make the money, and like either you're not on the team or we had to let go of somebody, or we're winning and we're able to reinvest that back into the growth of the company and continue to win. So I think winning and losing is something that athletes are used to. It. They lose or they win, and I think that people who haven't had to compete and like put their feet in between the lines and play don't know what it's like to win or to lose as much, and they have to. It's kind of ambiguous, but athletes know that if they define what winning and losing is, or the company's done that within a certain culture, it really magnifies that spirit in them, and it's pretty clear. So I think athletes are unbiased, but I think they're the best salespeople.
The interesting thing is you talked about reps, and then you talked about sort of understanding what it means to win. Now, everyone talks about, you got to focus on the process, but then there's also focus on winning or achieving the goal. How do you balance those two? Like if someone that's not an athlete that has sort of experienced the two, how do you teach both those aspects? Because they're both important.
How do you teach someone who's not an athlete?
Like, for instance, we always talk about improving the process, right? Focusing on the process, but then outcomes important too. So how do you balance those two competing things because sometimes, they go process, but there's winning and losing there, right?
Yeah, that goes hugely into what I call identity. So I think if identity is who you are, not what you do, like you separate being from doing, right? So like your Tats, who you are is awesome. What you do is differently. And is what you're doing working or not? Not you are working or not, right? So if you're so concerned about identity being like your results, right? What happens is you forsake the things that are supportive of those results for shorter term gain because you're trying to stay validated in your identity concept. So what I'm big is separating the two and then giving them a standard of objectivity to help them understand their role as it relates to either national benchmarks in sales skills, sales process, examples of what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, and then tying in the winning and losing part with, hey, you're already great, but winning in the marketplace are two different things. I heard Tony Robbins share his first seminar he went to, and the quote that was taken away, that he took the most value from, was very important because he shared it, and I was like, wow, that's great. He's like, everybody has value, and it's the same value. Everyone has the same value, except in the marketplace. And I was like, oh, that's so good, because what we're not saying is you're a winner or not a winner. It's saying you're a winner, but in the marketplace, this is a different arena, right? You got to create value or you don't create value. And it's objective. It's role oriented, not you oriented. So when you have like a culture that like values humans, but then wants to be the best in the role in the arena, you're able to like really enforce those standards, and then you're able to shape outcomes within what the winning and losing looks like. And I think what's fun in entrepreneurs and business owners, they get to define that for themselves. Like for me, I have a certain revenue number that I want to hit. And I'm like, this is what I want. And then, but what I found was that I could put double time into getting that and get it. But then what I'm also finding is my family is suffering from my energy, right? And my best energy. So what I'm doing now is I'm adjusting my schedule to work like 40% less hours, but still make the same. So it's like I'm almost doubling my business, so to speak, right? I'm winning because I've categorized what success is. Does that make sense?
I
And
think
so,
so. So you're sort of so are you keeping the revenue number, or are you reprioritizing things? How's that look? Or
so,
you
so like for me, it's like the revenue number stays the same, but
yeah.
I'm gonna work 40% less hard. So
Okay.
if I can hit that revenue number, but with 60% of what I used to do, that's a
Okay.
win. And then the next goal is to either add more time or add more revenue is my goal.
Okay. So
It's
you're
just
basically working on the strategy, the process to get that efficiency out instead of just putting more time into it.
right because I define what winning and losing is for me now.
Okay.
Because the winning at all costs at the expense of whatever, right? Whether it's family, you look back and you're like, oh, I didn't really win. That was all for what? So for me, I'm very family oriented because it's incredibly challenging to be an entrepreneur and want to be amazing at what you're doing and have a great family. It takes incredible skills of spinning plates, but I think that's what at least I'm going for. So I think having said that, that's my answer to helping kind of navigate like process. This helps you
Yeah.
grow and winning and losing with somebody who hasn't ever experienced that innately and they're just like used to it. You could That's kind of how I prepare it.
So what are some of the things you've done to reduce your time working on the work side and but still maintaining your aggressive goal, like your trajectory towards the goal? What sort of areas were you focusing on improving?
Yeah, so there's three areas that I always look to. It's EAD: eliminate, automate, or delegate.
Mm,
So that's where I've taken. What do? I solve problems for a niche, right?
hmm
The vehicle in which I did it used to be go to their office and do a couple of days with them,
Okay.
right? So then I said I need to automate, eliminate, or delegate. So I went ahead and automated that with an online course.
Mm,
Okay, what's the next thing that gets them results? Well, I need to coach them. Well, doing one-on-one was very challenging, so I could do leverage group coaching. So then I merged them together and did coaching calls. So now I automated that, and I just eliminated all this travel time and all these one-on-one calls. And then from there, I said, well, I need some additional support just in case, like I'm going to take a vacation, the business doesn't stop, people still get support. So I delegated. I hired an incredible person who's on my team named John, and he's my guy. He's my number two. So he's there to support the clients to get results on the outcomes that they're desiring, which is what the intent is.
mhm,
And then the next problem was I can't get leads unless I go speak at a conference,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so that right there was crazy because it took away. It's like 3 days in a whirlwind, for your routine.
Yeah.
So as much as you get, deals like that. So for me, this COVID thing is so powerful because it's actually birthing the thing I wanted to do all along, but I had trouble having the self control to say no all the time because of
Mm,
all the. So now I'm doing more webinars, doing more podcasts, working on my sales funnel, working on automating scheduling appointments, right, and then all the tracking and automation and the follow up loops and things like that. So yeah, so it's really having a systems thought process, like being able to think in systems, leveraging technology to automate, or having humans and good people that are on your team to delegate to, and also just eliminating, like saying, "Hey, I just don't do that anymore. Like I don't do on-site trainings anymore. I don't speak at events. Like those are things I'm learning to say no to." Somebody invited me to speak at a conference, and I asked, Would you?" I couldn't say no. I was like, "Could you live Zoom me in?" They're like, "Oh, I think we're gonna have enough speakers this year. Thanks." I'm like, "All right." I didn't travel all the way to San Diego or Houston to do something that who knows what it would have looked like, right?
yeah.
So that's how I've been doing it. And as I'm teaching contractors, I teach them the same way of thinking. Whether it's lead gen, inspection, discovery process, asking the right questions. And there's a human element that I think is very important for all companies to invest in, the human side. So if they can train them, their mindset, have the right culture, have the right accountability, they can get a whole lot out of them. But then you also institute some automations, or just get them to eliminate something that's been a distraction. Everything goes up like through the roof, like talking
Yeah.
massive quantum leaps.
Sounds good. So give me some examples, like on the contracting side. What are some of the things you've sort of eliminated or automated or delegated for your clients?
I think that in some ways, estimating and sales are two very different skill sets and
Okay.
are challenging. So splitting those up could be very valuable. Also, project managing.
Hmm.
So I think that when you have somebody cradle to grave, that could be an incredible model, but it takes a real talented individual to do 5 to 10 million of that every year,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
that. And you want like one, like you want that as much. You want to be a commercial roofer and have a guy sell 10, 15 million. But if they're doing all these other things, you got to like eliminate that. And then integration software, so the reduced double entry is huge, and forms. So having better forms and um, leveraging technology as well to really eliminate the need to. Well, you can't go door knocking right now, right? You can't go walk into an industrial plaza and try to speak to the manager. So having really good copy, really good videos, really, and then leveraging Zoom like we're doing right now
Yeah.
to, or do better consultations of the sales process versus having to drive 45 minutes, go all the way over there. We love the FaceTime and it's very important, but you can get, I mean, what can you get? Like if you looked at FaceTime as 100%, you could probably get a decent amount of value, probably 75, 80% of what you would do in person, but you can get more volume of it. So you get less effectiveness, maybe, but then you have more efficiency. And then as they just get better and better, they end up becoming more efficient than they would if they were face to face. So they're more efficient and have better impact because they're more trained and they're more dialed. So there's just a lot that I see there in contracting. Estimating as well, having good programs that estimate, DocuSigns, email proposals with signatures. There's some proposal softwares that it forces you to turn the page to read through it before going
Mm.
to the end. If you can't get somebody to sit in on a close call or a next step call or presentation call, I like those quite a bit. Having just good estimation programs that pretty much simplify the need to have all this product knowledge. And then another thing too is product knowledge.
Mm.
I'm over here teaching people through an online course, sales methodology, branding, sales process, coaching, how to run sales meetings, how to do Zoom, how to ask the right questions, how to qualify, all that. So what I'm wanting to do now is getting my contractors, because look, do you think a 23-year-old's gonna come in and expect to spend a year like hanging out on the cruise and then hanging out doing ride-alongs to know the industry? No, that's just not going to happen. So what's got to happen is we have to put all of our processes with product knowledge and the way how you do it, how this roofing company does it, how this painting contractor does it, how this manufacturer does it with relation to product knowledge. It needs to be in like an online LMS or training digital
Mhm.
playbook.
Mhm.
Because if we do that, that's the key. Because and so when you're not spending time training because all that's documented, you have the right environments, you have the right systems, you could take high quality humans, bring them in and get them up to speed much more quickly. And the owners can spend more time on the things that they love to do. And I think some owners love to business develop and build relationships. I think some owners love to just go fishing and hunting and not be at the office very much. I think some owners love to work on get in the estimating chair and help estimate, but they know that they have capacity and time. And when they don't do that, the owner is the vehicle to get the lead to contract to revenue. They have to be in everything.
What about sort of like different aspects, like lead generation, like, different parts of the funnel? Like, do you sort of break those up as well? Like in terms of different people with different skill sets?
That's a good question. I would say there's a couple of major skill sets. One is lead generation and relationship building. So, like a business development executive or a business development rep.
Hmm.
So, they could be digitally, virtually outbound and generate appointments and then involve a sales professional, aka estimator, executive, you want to call it what you want. Um, I like that. I think salespeople should only be selling if they know how to generate a lead and build a relationship themselves and close it. So I'm more saying you should hire lead gen reps if your account execs are closing and they just are closing and their current accounts that they're developing and expanding on are working so well. that they don't have time to prospect because they're just building on their network. That's when it's time to say, okay, this is breaking, or this part of the funnel is lacking. So let's do that, right? So that could be done through ads and marketing. That could be done through a business development rep to prospect. You decide the vehicle. Depends on your philosophy. I like relationships in the market. I think that creates a higher closing rate, shorter sales cycle, and people can keep their margins because they invest more on the front end on the relationship side. At least I've seen that work very well for the contracting space that wants to be a local brand. And then you have the sales process being conducted that can be done with somebody who can estimate themselves and do their own inspection takeoff, or they delegate that part. I find that the larger deal sizes that are more complicated typically is designated. It makes sense to designate and to break it up, because the estimation process is very technical and the sales process is very highly skilled. And most of the time, people at the level that they want to get to can't do both wonderfully. They're usually very good at giving great free consulting and how to price something and how the system to use. Or the salesperson asks all the right questions and builds a relationship and qualifies it, but they can't estimate it. Or if they did, they would give the thing away to make sure they get the deal, and they wouldn't make any money on it, right? So those are the main ones, I'd say.
Yeah. What about people like maybe not as much contractors, because it's kind of a bit more regionalized, like opening up new areas of business or growing it, but maybe they're not the people to sort of maintain it. How would that work? Like someone rolls in, what's the motivation for them to develop it, and then for someone to come in behind and manage it? Like how would that relationship work?
Can you be a little bit more specific?
Yeah, I mean, like let's say, you have one type of salesperson that's really good at opening the door, getting the relationship going, getting the initial sales going, but maybe they're not the ones to manage it for the next 5 years.
Yeah,
How
that's
would that
like
interact?
a hunter,
Yeah,
versus a account manager farmer
sure,
model.
sure. How'd that work?
Yeah, I think it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? But like uh, to break into a brand new market takes a little bit more muscle and probably a little bit more strength than somebody who's just trying to penetrate more in an existing market, because there's less relationships to work off of. But yeah, we actually, my company, we evaluate every sales rep that's a part of the program and measure them against a national international benchmark of sales ability, and then puts them in like percentiles, and breaks up all their competencies into different categories. So you could find somebody could just be terrible at hunting, but they're good at relationship building or good at account management. And so, but not every company has the capacity for that, right? Like somebody just got to wear all those hats until they have enough accounts, So we want to make sure there's no stone left unturned as it relates to giving a company the tools and the steps and the coaching to do that, if they're working with me, for example. But I think an owner needs to have all those bases covered. They need to have all those bases covered, because if they have a training process that covers those, they can take somebody who has some desire and commitment and learn all of those until there's enough volume and demand to break that up and to get more specialized.
You start to talk about sort of benchmarks and stuff like that. Give me an example of what categories this benchmark would assess, or what sort of outcomes would come out of that benchmarking system.
Yeah, so there could be one that would cover the entire individual that rolls up their entire sales competencies. Like, for example, they could be in the weak category: serviceable, strong, or elite. And that would be comprised of 21 core competencies. So like desire and commitment for sales success, that's huge. Their figure it out factor: how much responsibility do they take of their sales results? Or do they blame competition, their company, or the economy? Also, those are all in the mindset. And we go a little deeper into some things called like sales DNA. So like need for approval is a big one. If they have a high need for approval, they need to be liked. They're not going to ask great, good, tough questions like a consultative seller or a qualifier would. So you have need for approval, overcoming or controlling emotions, not getting too excited, and what I call happy ears. When a lead comes in, you get all excited, you skip questions, and then you find out after you get the proposal, they're thinking it over, and You didn't get to the decision maker after all, and things like that. So what we want to do is address things like that, like comfort discussing money. How they buy is how they'll sell.
Hmm.
They price everything out and they go for the cheapest price and they take their time to make decisions and take action. They're going to empathize with a prospect who does the same thing with them, right? They're going to be like, oh, I totally do the same thing. So that's not good for sales to accept put offs and go lower on your price and not sell value. So we address the mental side to
Hmm.
unlock those limiting beliefs and then really try to upgrade those first. And then we want the other sales outcomes to flourish, like hunting, relationship building, consultative selling, selling value, qualifying, CRM savvy, closing, presentation approach, account management, negotiation. Those bring incredible, those outcomes when strong, you're going to make a lot of money.
Mm.
But with the sales DNA,
Yeah.
if those are weak, those outcomes will never be supported. They can't do it. Like somebody has a high need for approval, they cannot sell like very well. They're just going to be a price quoter. They're just going to quote and bid all day because they're too worried about, offending somebody to get deeper and ask them like how it's impacting them and asking them questions that are a little awkward. So what I do is I try to help them understand based on those benchmarks of those competencies, what's holding them back or supporting their ability to be great.
Hmm.
We open that up, then we can get all up in their mind and in their team, and then start to set the bar higher. That creates more of the processor is stronger, right? So now the apps they want to run can be run really easily, selling consultatively, hunting, building relationships, qualifying, things like that. And then we introduce sales process. So that way the sales process is able to be executed because we've addressed the limiting beliefs first.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, out of all those, I could probably ask you about all of those, but let's just pick one out. Selling value. I think that's one of the things that people struggle with. How do you get someone that's sort of struggling with that concept? They're wanting to discount uh, to sort of really understand that process.
Good question. I think that when somebody's struggling to sell value, what we need to do is a couple things. We need to help them. We need to help them see that what they think is a lot of money isn't a lot of money. Like after all, so we need to kind of help them see what a lot of money is. Maybe they grew up and their parents never really made a lot of money, so 100,000 is a lot of money. So any ticket size that's more than like 15 grand, they start to think is expensive, right? So when we first off address what that money ceiling is, that's huge, and then we want to lift it much higher. And then what we do is we help them to see the consequence of their end user spending less money with the competition and how that's going to cost them more money and more frustration down the line, right? Whether it's they cut corners, change orders, their unexpected change orders are coming up, or having to do it over again, a safety problem that impacted them, cost them a lot of money. So we want to do is we want to train somebody as a sales professional what the cost is going to be as the alternative of them spending a little bit more with you. When that's the case, they realize that they're actually saving them money by spending more upfront and doing it right this time. So you got to do a little bit of like peeling back and then like mapping it out. And then once it's mapped out, it's very powerful. And then they're like, yeah, it sounds expensive, but they're able to create value even before they present price because we've created some what I call polarity with a low bid scenario or cutting corners that would results in a cheaper cost to do it. So those are two different conversations. So when we train somebody on that, it's very powerful.
Okay, very cool. You touched on CRM. They talk about CRM adoption, right? Getting people to buy in, getting people to use it. What are some of the things that happen there?
If the CRM is not the source of truth of the data, then it's not going to be used. If the company doesn't care about the data, then it's not going to be used. So you need a leader who cares about the growth. That's why I'm big on like leadership first. Like, where are we going? Why are we going there? What's going there look like? What is the goal, right? So, and then we'll realize that the data is going to be indicators and predictors of us achieving that goal, it becomes relevant information. And then therefore using it within a meeting for accountability purposes is everything. And then I think that just having a no tolerance policy is big. I do think it's frustrating though for me when there's owners with a no tolerance policy who have a really bad system. It's a challenge. I'm like, all right, man, I get it, but this is super hard. But it's really painful to uninstall and then install a new CRM. I get it.
So they have a bad system. You mean like a bad CRM system, or just
like a cumbersome CRM that's just like clunky and takes a lot of work. There's no integration. It's double entry and on a lot of ways. So it takes a pretty proficient user of technology to get through all of that swiftly. But anyhow, I think adoption needs to be combined with data as a source of truth for solid information that you actually care about.
Yeah.
So that's why I started to do coaching, because I noticed that the roofing company that I worked with cared about the results because of his growth-minded entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
And then so he would do all these other things to support the CRM usage.
like what? What was he doing?
Well, no, just like he ran sales meetings and used the CRM. There was accountability. There was goals. Yeah. They cared. Then I would go in to a company, show them the system. They would buy the system, but they wouldn't use it because the reliance on the information wasn't there. They were good guys or girls, but they didn't have a real solid sales vision and sales plan. They didn't have a sales process. They didn't have a structure and a culture of performance yet. So we had to so I started doing that like 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. To help the companies. And that's where the whole consulting started. I was like, dude, these guys don't even have a sales culture at all. Like, no wonder you're crushing everybody in your market. So he was like, I know. I'm like, I want to teach people this. He goes, okay, let's charge for it. I'm like, you betcha. So we charged for it.
That's how it goes, right? When you start something. Now, you said a culture of performance. What does that look like inside one of these organizations? Like, it just means like being on people with their targets. What does it feel like? What are the things that you'd see?
Yeah, you should see goals defined. You should see daily activity measured. And if you look at sports, right, this is the only thing that, I go back to it. If you're playing at a higher level in high performing sports, the scoreboard is up, right? You're up. You're either winning or losing. Your stats, your batting average or your ERA is either leading the team or it's not, and then it's leading a league or it's not. Like, I've created a feature in my environment now where I have a player rankings based on badge accumulation on their journey as a sales professional or a sales leader, because I know how powerful it was to know, am I doing any good? I may be the best of my team, but what about the rest of the industry? Am I decent? That's why the top 100 in roofing contractors is such a hit. The top 500 is such a hit, because people who are competitors, how do they know if they're good? Mm-hmm. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like I need my ego stroked. It's just like, man, I'm putting a lot of work in here. Yeah. I want to know. I want to know how we're doing.
Yeah.
So when you have something that's even to the extent of like outside of your industry, outside of your company and in a different environment, that's why the best companies are in Vistage groups and mastermind groups, because they get a perspective and a lens that they never would have in their own business, because they're just in their own world. So you take that and then you boil it down to a sales environment. And then you shape a culture that supports winning, and you could call it punishment or just doesn't celebrate losing, right? We could celebrate winning and learning.
Yeah.
But we're not just okay with losing. It's just not okay.
Yeah. So, you said the scoreboard is up. So is the scoreboard up in a way that everyone can see what everyone else is doing in the sales department? Is that what you're thinking, or just other metrics?
More transparency, the better.
Okay. Processes, great scalable repeated processes. What are the common themes? I think you touched on some of those already. What else comes to mind when you talk about scalable and repeatable processes?
Yeah, first off is the sales process that's conducted by the human. Like that's everything. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that, you're going to jump in and be a bid shop. You're just going to go price as much as you can. Mm-hmm. If you have a sales process that supports the outcomes we want, like selling value and get to the decision maker and selling consultatively and not just being a bidder, that's going to create higher closing rates, right? Shorter selling cycles. It's going to create better relationships, going to be like value in the marketplace. So I think that's the biggest one, is just having a sales process that supports that.
Mm-hmm.
I have that. You should find somebody who who has one that matches your philosophy if you don't have one, because when you have you as the owner or the sales leader or the executive fulfilling a good sales process, you're just going to get that much better.
Yeah.
And then when somebody else we need to rely on someone else to close the deal, and you have that much more skill and more familiarity with the good sales process, and you're better. Now you're able to impose those beliefs with a lot more authority and coach more effectively with somebody new.
Yeah, and how rigid is those processes do you think need to be? I mean, do you script everything out, or is it based on if you're doing good with what you're doing, we leave it, and if you're kind of following along, or is everyone sort of doing the same thing?
I think I want a sales athlete, not a sales robot. Like, if it's a robot, it should be a robot. Like, robots are robots. Like, for example, need forms and questionnaires are robots.
Yeah.
Let the robot do what the robot does. I love robots. I'm all about the system. But when a human's involved, they need to be a sales human, a sales athlete that's kinetic and knows where they are and makes decisions in the moment, because humans bring a ton of value. Humans are great. I love people. People are beautiful. We're in a people business at the end of the day, in our business and our prospects and our marketplace. So we don't take away the humans. So what I don't like to do is give scripts. I was at the bank the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to the associate, and
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at getting a line of credit just because I'm been in business long enough. It's nice to have it just to be safe, not just function only on cash. I want to have that just in case I want to do some major growth initiatives, whatever. I'm just preparing myself. And it's interesting. I told him a few different times about my situation with my team members, whether they're W-2 or 1099, some of my targets. And it's funny, he was looking at his computer and he still asked me multiple questions that I already given him the information. He had to go back and forth and look at the computer, make sure he asked the right question because he has to follow the process. And it's so bummer because like I'm over here working at a bank and they have so much daggone money from all the spreads they make on these mortgages. I'm like, and they can't create connection and actually show that they are paying attention and care because they're worried all about the rigidness of the process. So I think that if a robot's a robot, make that thing the best robot in the world. But if a human they need to know why those milestones are there first, so that like if somebody knows why that is there, they're going to naturally be able to hit those milestones that are defined because they know why. Because most people don't like we're not slaves here, right? We're not like, you must do this. So we are in the world. So I'm all about empowerment and freedom. So if they're free to be themselves, but they know why, then they're bought in and they're connected to that why. Now they're dangerous because they navigate the sales process wonderfully. But so I'm all about milestone-centric sales processes versus sales scripts, unless it is because I can script something and that's the best question in the world, but using the wrong time, you look like you're not in the game, right? You don't seem relevant and they don't trust you. I will say though that prospecting scripts are very powerful when you're like sending a video message, leaving a voicemail, things like that. Those are big. But as soon as we get into like interaction, like actual on the phone or face to face, it's all about the milestones. And that's where the why and the mindset can either support or sabotage that completely. I just think that we're in a fun time. This industry is amazing. It'll never, ever leave. It's never going to go away, ever. There's always going to be a building to be built or replaced or restored or repaired. So as a sales professional, I know what I'm teaching can go other industries, but I'm like, I just want to stay here because it's never going away. It's a lot of fun. There's so much talent in the industry right now. Like my mentor, he's a rock star. Let me tell you, like the ones that are like my age and even younger, they're like 30s, late 20s who are getting in the game. They are dangerous because they're so tech savvy. they're entrepreneurial, they see an opening, and I just don't think the traditional mom and pops that don't really have to know business are going to last. Give it 20 more years, and I don't think they'll be able to even survive anymore. I think it's going to have to be like people who know business and happen to do roofing, happen to do this, they happen to do that. I'd say give it 20, maybe longer, but I'm 33 right now. When I'm 53, this whole landscape will be entirely different because of accessibility of information and for someone to come in and take it. So for me, like I know what I do is bring a lot of value, but if I'm committed to this niche, I'm able to stay out in front of the more innovative technologies and processes and adopting and helping my customers adopt those so that they could stay in front. But I'd never be able to do that if I was relying on one-on-one face-to-face coaching all the time, right? I'd be still saying the same thing and not being able to get those fundamental best practices that help their business go from here to here. I wouldn't be able to help them consume that at a scale that I want. So I would say that this industry is growing. It's going fast. Learn how to be a business person first and a contractor second. That if you can be a sales and marketing organization, you will survive. But if you're a contractor who doesn't know how to do that, you won't survive. You'll be working for somebody else, right? You'll be a foreman. You'll be the guy who started his own company, never learned business, basically, couldn't get through the difficult times. But you know a bunch about roofing, so now you're going to go work for some like 35-year-old, just total rock star entrepreneur who has you dumping all of your information into their LMS so that they can train their future hires with your knowledge. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this industry is moving fast, so it's time to get help, time to get sharp, time to stay out in front. And that's just what I'm seeing. And I feel like I'm in the middle of it. Like I saw some of the old like OGs, like, you know, the original gangsters, right? They're like, they made the industry, but there's a whole, they paved the way for this next one that's going to another level.